So, he's a great person, and you're going to hear a lot from him a little bit later today as he gets up here and presents and talk about, his illustrious career in education. And as an educator, we're so appreciative for all he does in educating our children. And we're particularly appreciative because we have, 2 kids in high school right now in Cheyenne, and they're thriving there. They're doing a great job. I was talking to Dr. Newton just earlier this week, and as I was talking to him, he said, "Oh, I was just seeing certificates for one of your sons because we're going to present these awards at the next school board meeting." And my kids love winning awards because we've told them they need to. So, so they do a great job at doing that on our behalf. I mean, for them, not us. That's right, for them. And and our one son's off to college here pretty soon. They're doing well. Our other youngest son, he just won a writing contest, an essay contest through the Optimist Club, and won some scholarship money for that. And I'm not supposed to be talking about my kids. I'm supposed to be talking about Dr. Newton. So let me shift gears again. Dr. Newton, so he'll talk to you about education. So let me talk to you for a moment about him on another front, and that is he donates freely of his time in other avenues as well, right? It's not just all about education. So he has passion to be in our community, be a pillar of our community, and help in lots of different areas. And interesting enough, one of the areas in which he likes to help is to be a board member, has been a board member since 2018 at the Cheyenne Regional Medical Center Foundation. And there in that role, he's served for several years, and on our foundation just does amazing work, right? So our foundation just last year alone in 2023 raised just slightly over $3 million in support of healthcare in our community. They received a grant, a singular grant from the Helmsley Charitable Trust Foundation for $1.5 million that got funneled through our foundation and found its way to operationalize in our hospital to get new ultrasounds for everything that we do there. We put on stellar events, hallmark events in our community, such as the Great Bison Shuffle, our Charity Golf Classic, and an event perhaps you've heard of, Denim and Diamonds. And that's been going on for, I don't know, probably about 19 years or so. And over the course of that time, Denim and Diamonds has raised over $7.7 million for the betterment of the health in our community. So thanks, Dr. Newton, for doing all that for us, right? But no, seriously, we at Cheyenne Regional and Cheyenne Regional Foundation are happy to be members of our community, to be members of the Chamber of Commerce, and we're happy to have and thrilled to have members of our community like Dr. Steve Newton, who don't just help out in the education arena, which is the pillar of what happens in our community, but he also volunteers his time, like I said, so freely in many other organizations aside from the CRMC Foundation. So we're thrilled to have him part of our community. We're thrilled to call him one of our own at Cheyenne Regional, and we're thrilled that he gets to lead all of our children for a great education to prepare them for the wonderful lives ahead that they're going to lead. So with that, thank you, Dr. Newton, and I'll let someone else give the more formal introduction, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim. The Cheyenne Chamber is so grateful for the relationship that we have with CRMC, so we're super grateful for you for sponsoring today. We'd also like to thank our other sponsors that we have, Little America Hotel and Resort as a gold sponsor, and our bronze sponsors, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming and Burns Insurance Agency. Thank you. Now, please help me in welcoming Barbara Brennan with Harmony Hearth and Homes, and welcome our red carpet new members to the chamber.
Sorry, short people problems, huh? Welcome to the Chamber Luncheon. I am Barbara Brennan from Harmony Hearth and Home, but I'm also an ambassador of the Chamber with the Red Carpet Committee. The Red Carpet Committee is really the welcoming committee. We like to welcome all new Chamber partners and celebrate and help them get connected to the community and through the Chamber. Another thing that we do through the Red Carpet Committee is beautification awards. So be watching for that. Be looking around your community and seeing who you would want to nominate who is working on beautifying our city. If you would like to join the Red Carpet Committee, we're the ones in red. So just catch one of us who is on the committee or contact the chamber if you would like to join us. But now it's my privilege and what we love to do is to welcome the new partners. So we have several new partners today. I want to make sure, is Alan Richardson here today? Okay. All right, so we will first welcome Mike Brown, Justin Ellis, Blaine Guile, and Q Hill from Regional Roofing and Restoration. Regional Roofing is a community-driven roofing company in Cheyenne, Wyoming, dedicated to professionalism, safety, and quality. Committed to teamwork and community involvement, they prioritize excellence in every project, building lasting relationships and making a positive impact, proudly serving with integrity and care for many years. Welcome to the chamber. And now we welcome Jan Cartwright, Richard Garrett, and Esther Gonzalez from Healthy Wyoming. Healthy Wyoming is advocating for Medicaid expansion. They address business challenges from labor shortages to workforce health. With Medicaid expansion federally funded at 90%, they boost Wyoming's economy and ensure health care coverage, benefiting both businesses and employees. Healthy Wyoming eagerly anticipates collaborating with the business community to propel Wyoming toward a healthier, stronger future. Join them in building a vibrant Wyoming. Welcome to the chamber. And now we welcome Warren Goss, Alita Zimmerman, and Tim Munyon from Encore. Encore is a 501c3 nonprofit organization specializing in customized trainings for personal and professional development. The company's mission and vision were refocused in the spring of 2023 to address the prevalence of skill set gaps in the workforce. By co-creating content with partner organizations to reflect what is needed most within their organization, Encore provides modernized platforms that are relatable, flexible, and diversifies expectations of traditional trainings. Welcome to the chamber. And finally, we welcome JJ Vasquez from J&J Wood Floors. J&J Wood Floors is Cheyenne's trusted hardwood floor refinishing expert, revitalizing floors with unmatched shine and durability. With over 5 years of expertise, they offer affordable rates, quality service, and reliability for both residential and commercial clients. Licensed, insured, and dedicated, choose J&J for exceptional results. Welcome to the chamber.
Thank you, Barbara. You can't run a chamber without good volunteers. Our red carpet volunteers, you see them here and they sign you in and help you get seated and all that, but they work all month and they meet every month to try to welcome new chamber members on board and be ambassadors for this community. So could I get you guys to stand? If you're on the red carpet committee, I know that several of you are here. Please give them a round of applause. Community can't work without volunteers. So welcome everyone to our chamber luncheon for April. You know, it's a beautiful day outside. I kind of think that that's God just telling us he's glad the legislature has gone home and give us all a break. But you know, it didn't end when they all went home. We followed that up with the management council earlier this week to talk about what topics we are going to talk about into the interim. So I want to share a few of those with you because they're going to be very important for business here and across the state. I think one thing that you're going to hear some about today from Dr. Newton, but from our standpoint, it was very disappointing to see the lack of dedication, even from some of our Laramie County elected officials, to build new schools in Cheyenne and Laramie County. For those of you who went on the school tour with us, I know several of you did a couple of years ago, we have some desperate need in this community. And the money's there and it's sitting there. All you got to do is pull the trigger on it, and they left it set. And so we're going to be watching that closely, and supposedly they're going to have a discussion about that. So we are going to watch it as it goes through the interim and encourage these guys to get our schools funded and make sure that we have the workforce we need as we go into the future. We'll send you out some information about what we're working on in the interim. A couple of other items. The National Guard had some positions that were fully federally funded, money that would come to Wyoming. The legislature turned it down. Why would you turn down free money? Why would you turn down jobs for your state? Why would you turn down money that would be spent in our armed forces? We've got to do some work on this. So here we go. We're going to have a grade card that comes out and tell you how they voted on these items. So we're working on that right now. You'll probably see that within the next month. Please pay close attention to that. We will also be doing reverse endorsements where we sit down and talk to these guys about what things that we're pushing that business wants that they agree with across the state. Pay attention to that. It's our responsibility to vote and to get out as citizens. I know I'm probably talking to the choir, but you got a neighbor, I guarantee it, right? Ring their bell and tell them to pay attention too as we go through this and share information with them. Hopefully we'll have some good tools for you to be able to help with that. So another thing one of the problems that I think we have related to all this, right, that we're trying to deal with is that we, for the first time in Wyoming, will have a national civics bee competition here. We're going to do that, I think, next week. The winner will go to Washington, D.C. and compete nationally. Nobody from Wyoming has been there, right? So they've just been doing it for a few years, but we're going to give that kid an opportunity to compete here in the state and go to the national level and compete. Try to go to that if you can, and if you hear about it. We had a practice test. We passed it out 200 times. I hate to say that more than half of everybody who took that test flunked it, right? And so I won't point out who, right? They're hard questions, but it's stuff you learn. So the Civics Bee is a great way for us to build that in Wyoming and build our bench for good citizens into the future. So please pay attention to that if you can. If you don't hear anything else I say today, this one you need to pay attention to. How many know about the Corporate Transparency Act? So the Corporate Transparency Act requires almost every single human in this room or every business in this room to open up and show beneficial ownership to the federal government. That is a requirement right now. And you have to the rest of the year to get this accomplished. We've sent out a couple things about it. We will send some more information about it, but it is a per day charge if you miss the deadline. So unless you just want to send the federal government, anybody want to send the federal government more money? I want to talk to you afterwards. I want to increase your chamber dues because I got some other places you can spend that, right? But you need to be aware of this. So please watch for that because it isn't a requirement that's going to be on you, and you're going to have to comply with it. We're doing our best to fight it off at the federal level, but we definitely need to pay attention to it. This week it's a National Defense Authorization Act week. That's what we've been working on in our office partly this week. The number one item coming out of from our elected officials on Capitol Hill will be to support the president's budget for 1.6 billion bucks for Warren Air Force Base in 25. That is the start of the Sentinel system, the new missile system. So that is awesome. Tell those guys thank you for supporting that and for working across the aisle to make this a reality for our community. Before I get out of here, I just want to comment that, I am so grateful to live in a community that comes together and supports something like a Chamber of Commerce. It takes everybody. And every time I think we have hit a ceiling and there is nowhere else to go, my staff disappoints me, or I shouldn't say disappoints, right? Come, all right, I said that totally wrong. I'm sorry. For those of you who don't know, I was educated in Oklahoma. I know that's going to get me in more trouble. Tanya was educated in Oklahoma. I'm just digging up. Somebody please take the shovel. Man, I was building up to a great one right there, and I totally blew it. I am so encouraged that we just keep moving forward. And I couldn't do that without a great staff. But this month, we introduced a new member, Regional Roofing, and they signed up as a national partner. That is a commitment to this community. That is a commitment to their chamber. So please recognize them for that investment. We appreciate that very much, guys. We look forward to working with you. The Cheyenne Chamber is a chamber of many firsts. Some of you may know that we started Frontier Days way back when. As a matter of fact, our board members had to take personal loans out to fund it when it first began. If you go back and read, it's fun reading, right? But other things as you move forward that we worked on and we were catalysts for, the splash pad, all the bronze statues downtown. You may remember that the first one was our leadership class. It was Dusty, and you may not know that he got stolen and we had to pay for him twice, right? The Cheyenne Chamber is working on another first. One thing that I've been worried about for a few years now is that there is something called the National Council of State Chambers. And that Council of State Chambers, you walk into that room and there are 48 seats. And there are 2 of us that don't have a seat at that table, right? There are 2, only 2. And so we've been trying to correct that problem. So I'm just giving you a little teaser today. We're not quite ready to launch it, but we will soon. That we from the Cheyenne Chamber are starting the first state chamber in the history of the state of Wyoming. And that is going to change the game for us on a number of things. So thank you guys for the continued support. And I'd welcome your chairman back up here and she can take the shovel away and take the last hit. So what? Oh, raffle. No, I don't get to give my shovel up yet. All right. Draw me a card, Tim. So the free lunch today goes to Aubrey Porter. So Aubrey, if you'll see our staff, we'll get you hooked up with your free lunch. Okay. 3057897. 3057897. All right. So you get cold hard cash. You just bring. So they like to donate that back. So that's awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for your participation. And now Tanya can finally take my shovel from me and I can quit digging. Please welcome your chamber chair, Tanya Keller.
All right, thank you, Dell. Now it is with great pleasure that we introduce Dr. Steve Newton, the new esteemed superintendent of Laramie County School District Number 1. With a 30-year career in education, Dr. Newton brings a wealth of experience and remarkable achievements to his latest role. His academic credentials are impressive, including a doctorate in education from the University of Wyoming, where his research focused enhancing high school students' comprehension of college-level texts. Additionally, he holds a Master of Arts in Education and a Bachelor of Science with honors in biology. Dr. Newton's accolades speak volumes, including recognition as the Wyoming Secondary Principal of the Year. His leadership spans various roles from directing LCSD 1's pre-service professionals development program to shaping curriculum design for instructional strategies statewide. As superintendent, Dr. Newton is poised to harness the extensive expertise in strategic planning, curriculum oversight, and community engagement to drive LCSD to new heights. His appointment reflects the board's confidence in his ability to navigate future challenges and opportunities. In addition to his educational experience, Dr. Newton has also proven to be a friend to the business community and to the Cheyenne Chamber. Let's please give Dr. Newton a warm welcome.
It was so nice, I thought you might have been talking about somebody else. Don't love seeing myself on the screen in the back of the room. That's the view that you all get, but I shouldn't have to look at it. Thank you. Thank you very much. It is absolutely an honor and a pleasure to be here. I'm kind of a pacer, and I know I'll go off the mic if I do, but I might develop a bit of a stutter if I have to just stay put. So I'll do my best here. Before I really get going, I have some colleagues here with me today that I would be remiss if I didn't mention. We have a few of our Board of Trustees, Chairman Tim Bolin, Trustee Brittany Ashby, and Trustee Brooke Humphrey. They're all here with us. Any others who snuck in on me that I didn't see? Here's what I can tell you. My role has been brief thus far in the superintendency, but the work with the trustees, what I can tell you is it's usually very difficult work and it's always very thankless work. These are folks who have donated their time. There is no compensation and probably even the opposite. They probably lose a little skin every day from the way that they serve. And so I thank them for being here with us today, and I thank them for what they do for us. It is certainly much appreciated on my end, and we don't say it nearly enough. Got a couple of other guests from the school district. I know, Mary, would you and your crew give a big wave from Community Relations? And yeah. And hiding in the back, we have Mr. Adam Kaiser, who is our Workforce Partnership Facilitator. Since that's kind of fitting in this role, I suggested he come up here and do some interpretive dance while I spoke. He didn't necessarily think that was a great idea. As I said, my biography, it's not all that interesting really, and I'm sure that there's things we ought to be talking about more than me. So I have been serving as the acting superintendent. I began as the acting superintendent in August. And one of my hilarious daughters, when it was announced, said, "Dad, are you the acting superintendent or are you just acting like you're the superintendent?" So never a truer word spoken. The good Lord has blessed me with 6 children, but there was a bit of a practical joke when he gave me twin girls as numbers 5 and 6. They keep me on my toes. Every day when I plop down on the couch coming home, they say, a good superintendent would be over at the JV softball fields right now. So to the degree that I'm not a good superintendent, give them a call. They'll get me back on track. So it's certainly my pleasure to be here. I have served in this wonderful city in education for about 21 or 22 years in a variety of roles. And so in my current role is where we're going to kind of bring the focus today. I have a slideshow, but I will not insult you by going slide by slide and reading. It's just going to advance on its own. So if there's any part of it that you want to see more about, please ask. And I don't know, Amber, the problem you're going to have today, other than maybe the quality of the presentation, is the length of it. So give me the whatever sign you give when it's time for me to go. I'd be happy to field some Q&A if that would suit you. And I was here a couple of times ago where the district attorney was saying it was going to be a scathing Q&A. So I don't know if that's what you have in mind for me, but I can tell you this: I was at an elementary school doing a Q&A recently, and the first question out of the chutes, a little boy raised his hand and looked at me and he said, "Just how much do you weigh?" So I guarantee you will not be more scathing than 8-year-old boys. So yeah, so and if that's a question you want to ask, I'll dodge it with this group as much as I did with the kids. So there's so many different ways that we could talk about the education in the city of Cheyenne. But we need to bring this conversation to focus right where it ought to be. And that's with the number 13,133. As of today, that is how many young people have been entrusted into my care as the superintendent of schools in Cheyenne. And it's a blessing. I feel incredibly grateful, and I recognize the incredible responsibility. I saw I don't know if there was more than one slide, but I saw the slide, and it looked like those who answered the question felt somewhat satisfied with the quality of education in Cheyenne. And we are going to do everything we can to bring those numbers up. And maybe it begins with our conversation today. So where do we begin? I think where we should probably begin, Amber. Yep, you, Amber. We're going to talk a little bit about Guernsey, Wyoming for a second. You all right with that? Anyone else blessed to be from Guernsey, Wyoming besides myself and Amber? No? Well, that's tragic for this group. We need to expand membership for sure. When I was a kid growing up in Guernsey, Wyoming, I went deer hunting with my brother-in-law. He was much older than I was, and it was the first time I'd ever gone deer hunting. And so just north of and east a bit, I suppose, of Guernsey is a little town called Hartville. And we were hunting around Hartville. And so I was all decked out, at least thought I was, with the gear I needed. And we went up into the mountains. And at some point, my dear brother-in-law, whose name is Marty, if you watch any of the Wyoming Cowboy festivities where they honor the veterans that they're trying to get back into the University of Wyoming, and you see a gentleman, Marty Martinez, who runs that program over at the university, that's my Marty. He was my Marty before he was their Marty. So Marty was taking me deer hunting, and we got to a point where he said, okay, we're going to split up. I'm going to go this way, you're going to go that way. And sheer terror ran through me. I was just a kid. And I was okay when I was with Marty. But the idea of splitting up really scared me. And he must have saw that look on my face, because he said, "You're worried you're going to get lost." And I said, "Yeah, I don't know where we are really." And he said something to me that has resonated. It's funny how those little lessons in life, a day deer hunting, way back in the early 1980s, just still rings true today. And he said, "Look off in the distance. You see Laramie Peak?" Yeah, of course I saw Laramie Peak, because if you're in that part of the country, especially if you're up high, you always see Laramie Peak. And he said, "No matter where you are, walk to Laramie Peak." walk towards Laramie Peak. He wasn't that kind of brother-in-law that was going to make me walk clear to Laramie Peak. He said, if you ever feel like you're lost, just find Laramie Peak and keep walking towards it. Because of course, what he was smart enough to know that I wasn't is Highway 287 was between me and Laramie Peak, and I was sure to hit the road. And he said, I'll pick you up at the road. And this notion, if you saw the title of this, I really, labored with what we should call this conversation today. And I talked in the title about discovering true north. And for me, it was Laramie Peak. Not that that was necessarily north, but it was that thing off in the distance that I always kept my eye on, that I knew if we headed towards that, we were going where we were supposed to be. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what does Laramie Peak look like? What is finding our true north in this community for the kids and the education of this town? What does that actually look like? But before I do, there's something else that if we continue to belabor the metaphor a little bit of walking towards Laramie Peak. In any given moment, I may not have been able to walk exactly towards Laramie Peak because in any given moment, there might be heavy brush in my way and I got to walk around. Or there might be giant boulders that I got to scramble over. There might be deep ravines that I have to cross. So even though we keep our eyes focused on Laramie Peak, that doesn't tell us much about what we may encounter along the way. And so sometimes we stumble. I'm not going to stand up here today and tell you that we don't oftentimes stumble. And sometimes it may look like we're paying a whole lot more attention to the brush in the field and the boulders we got to scramble over and the ravines that we've got to cross, because sometimes we have to. But it's never at the expense of Laramie Peak. It's always in order to get us closer to that mountain in the distance. And so, one thing I want to talk about, I get asked all the time, I don't know if you listened to me on the radio the other day, I was on there and this question came up, and they wanted to engage me on the average scores. And let me tell you folks, I have no interest in average. I have no interest in being average, and I have no interest in talking about your children on average. If we were to look at the average shoe size in this room and give everyone that size pair, it would fit very few of us. So I am really reluctant to talk about averages because the average of across the district or even across the school may look very little like any given student. Some students may be struggling far more than the average, and some students may be excelling and not resembling the average on the other end of things. So when we talk, we've got to remember that the average score, the average graduation rate, the average YTOP, the average reading level probably speaks very little to any given student. And we are, and I am, far more interested in knowing and helping individual students than I am where we are on average. It's incredibly humbling to be in front of this group, knowing that some of my former students are sitting out there in the audience. I knew some of you as junior high students. In fact, I asked my friend, Mr. Brown here, if he would go around and make sure nobody was saving any carrots off your lunch plate to throw at me later. So if you don't want to deal with Mr. Brown, you might want to reserve those carrots for your snack later. We have no interest in trying to give medicine to groups of students. Medicine is properly dispensed to individual students. So we're going to talk a little bit about how do we take that vision of that high quality education, individualized to maximize potential at the student level. What are we going to focus our efforts on in the short term as we try to scramble our way closer and closer to that ideal? And please know, the other disclaimer I might say is your lived experience. Maybe the lived experience of my former students out here may look nothing like what I'm promising. It's the ideal, and we often fall short of the ideal. And so it's the promise that we're making what we're trying to do when we're at our very best. So there are 3 areas in our strategic plan. I want to hit upon each of them one at a time. We are bringing a renewed focus than ever before to this notion of student readiness. And despite, look, we've got to throw away the old stories. Despite what you may think is true about our definition of readiness, it has expanded tremendously in Cheyenne. I have worked with our workforce partners for many years saying we are not only trying to pipeline kids to a college. I'm seeing my buddy Luke out there and I'm seeing Larry over there. One of the things that we've said in the past is help us illuminate the other paths. We don't know them as well. So what readiness looks like, we are absolutely willing to expand what that may look like. But let me tell you, folks, lest you have come to believe this otherwise, please don't frequent I hope nobody in the Cheyenne Chamber runs the Cheyenne Rants and Raves page, because if they do, I'm gonna go rogue here and ask that you uninvite them. The Cheyenne Rants and Raves page would suggest the worst of what we're capable of. I'm here to tell you, we are just getting ready to send 30 kids off who have qualified to compete at the national level in speech and debate. Last year, and we are on track this year to even exceed it, we had over 300 students in Cheyenne compete at the national level. We have kids in speech and debate, 2 young men in speech and debate who are national champions. There is no one better than the kid from Cheyenne. I think when we talk about average, and I think when we listen to the worst of our stories, we don't hear those kind of things. We have currently 1,767 seats today filled with kids in advanced placement and international baccalaureate classes. Almost 2,000 seats full. I appreciate your story about taking the civics test. If any of you wonder if you got a better education than what is being offered out there now, I see a friend of mine smiling because her husband's one of the best AP World History teachers I've ever known, and he lives right here in this community. If you feel like the quality of education is wanting in this community, you ready for a dare? Here's the dare. Whatever you think you're smartest at, biology, chemistry, world history, Spanish, whatever you think you're best at in life, go home and Google advanced placement released exam in whatever you think that you're best at. And I dare you to take those sample questions and see if you can answer them. Why do I dare you that? Why do I act like you might not be able to? Because I taught high school science for a lot of years. I could not right now pass the AP biology or chemistry test. I couldn't. And we have 1,767 kids getting ready to knock the socks off it, especially if Aaron Kruger is your AP World History teacher. Last year, and we're on pace to even exceed this year, our senior class accrued more than $6 million in scholarships. We accrued more than 7,500 college credits just from our fine partners at LCCC. Over 7,000 credits, Bob. Our seniors, some of our juniors, even some of our younger kids, that's over $1.1 million in tuition savings, because that was not a dime out of the pockets of our families. $1.1 million in saved tuition costs when those kids earned all of those credits. Now, I hear what you're saying. That's not everybody, no doubt. But we have proven year in and year out, we roughly send a half a dozen kids a year to military academy appointments, West Point, the Air Force Academy, and all of the others. Each year, Cheyenne produces citizens that go and serve in that sort of way. We have kids that are partnering with LCCC in our workforce. We have 12 kids, 12 high school kids that before they get their high school diploma are going to get their manufacturing certification to go join your business in order to contribute. Before they got their high school diploma, they've got workforce certifications. The work's not done. On the other end of that, we've got kids that are reading far below grade level, and we are marshaling all of the adult support that we can to help those kids too. So when we say we're focused on student readiness, we have a commitment to a few things. One of those is a fundamental commitment, what ought to be seen as a basic human right to literacy. And we are doing our level best to make sure that nobody leaves our schools subliterate. We have a renewed focus in each and every classroom that our teachers are using best practices, not any old practices, not word search and crossword puzzles, best instructional practices, because we know nothing matters more in an education than the quality of a classroom teacher, period. Yeah, thank you. And please know that we're on sacred ground here when we talk about our kids who struggle. When I talk about our kids who struggle, we are not wishing that we didn't have these students. We are not wishing against kids, but we absolutely recognize we have some kids that have some challenges. Some of those obstacles, some of the ravines, some of the boulders are community problems that play out in our schools. So let me share a few of the challenges, and that would fall in the second category of where we're bringing our focus. If student readiness is the first, the second category is healthy environments. We need to make sure that our kids and our grown-ups are in healthy environments. And sadly, many aren't. We've got a lot of repair work to do. If it were only so easy that kids didn't know how to do algebra. But as it turns out, not citizens, students. We have 246 students in Cheyenne who are homeless. Think about getting your algebra homework done when you do not have a safe, secure, and stable place to live each night. See, those are the kids that get added into that average when people, I just had a gentleman the other night say, I can't believe your graduation rate is only 80%. It's not 80% of kids like yours and mine. It's 80% including kids. Do you know that number includes kids with severe cognitive disabilities? My dear nephew, who has Down syndrome, counts against us on graduation rate. So when we look at some of the challenges, and how big are those challenges? Students who are served through special education who have disabilities, the city of Cheyenne's K-12 population, we have 2,002 kids who have a disability that we have to try and level the playing field for. That's bigger than some of our towns in Wyoming. If we just made a school district out of our special ed population, we would be one of the fourth or fifth biggest district in the state. And is it a challenge? Are there obstacles when you have a disability and you're trying to learn? If you don't believe me, take off your glasses. Watch the rest of the presentation that way. Of course we know there are challenges. We have 15 students right now, and it usually hovers between 10 and 20, 15 students right now that we are teaching from jail. They are incarcerated and they are still on our books, and we still have teachers who are making their life's work, kids who are incarcerated. We have 488 kids in this K-12 system who speak a language other than English as their primary language. You want to know one of the most heart-rendering stories that I can possibly tell? It's a bit of a confessional because I'm not the hero of the story by a long shot. I was once teaching astronomy at Central High School, and a young lady that I had in class came up to me and asked me if she could turn in her paper, her essay in Spanish. And of course, I had some Spanish background, and I thought it was kind of a unique request, but I asked her why. Do you know what she said? This is the part where I'm not the good guy of the story. She said, "Because I am far smarter than you think I am." Yeah, I loved her dearly. She was a great kid, one of my favorites. But she could tell that I was underestimating her intelligence. And think about what she had to do. She had to listen to astronomy in English, translate it to Spanish, think about what she wanted to say back in Spanish, translate it back to me in English. 488 kids. Now, lest you think, wow, that's a lot of kids who speak Spanish. Nope. We have 19 distinct languages, primary languages of our kids spoken in Cheyenne. 19. How's your Uzbek? How's your Moldovan? How's your Chinese? Ours isn't that great either. And yet we have kids who don't speak a word of English coming to our schools. That creates obstacles. That creates difficulties. Am I surprised that those students might take a little bit longer? Not at all. Some of our best kids, some of our brightest kids, but certainly with obstacles. K-12, we have 5,498 students in our schools who are below the poverty line. They probably show up hungry every day. Over 5,000 in this community. 135 kids each day take all 3 meals with us. 135 kids in this community are never fed at home. Think about that. Never fed by their parents. 135. That almost looks like the number in this room, perhaps, that never eat at home. Our fine folks that do the sack lunches on the weekends. If it wasn't for you, they wouldn't have anything till Monday morning rolled back around. And then the last one. We have a new commitment like never before to plug in with you. I've described some of our successes. I've described some of our challenges. But we absolutely need to recognize that they're in little bodies right now, but they are citizens of the city of Cheyenne. I love this place. They love this place. They are trying to figure out how to navigate the world to take their place here in Cheyenne. And this is the part where I would say we come together. Let's reimagine what might be possible in our community engagement. You all have been so generous with our kids financially. Special apology to all of those where my kids come and ask you to buy the cards to use as coupons. And if you're like me, you can't even read, what did I just get a coupon for? So generous with your money. Here's a challenge. Would you be willing to partner with us to be as generous with your expertise, with your talent, time, talent, and treasure? You've always been so generous with your treasure. We are looking for brand new ways to partner with those of you who absolutely rely upon a competent workforce. These kids are doing the best they know how. I would like to think that I'm a pretty well-educated guy, but if I went on to Larry's job site, he'd fire me in a day. If he wanted me to be a good worker, he would have to teach me how to be a good worker. I know that when I went to my friend Luke's place, it blew me away. I realized that I was seeing this conversation in a very naive way when he took me to the second floor, right? Second floor at his business is a classroom. HVAC on the first floor, we teach them on the second floor. Reimagine, what does partnering look like? We have a new venture program. Adam Kaiser there. Give big wave of the hand and a little interpretive dance, Adam. Yeah, there we go. Adam Kaiser has invented a new program this year called the Venture Program, which I'm told is a combination of like a science fair meets Shark Tank. And maybe some of you are a part of it, where kids and schools come forward with their needs. And we have business partners who watch all of that and say, I think I could help on this one. Heard a really, really unfortunate story recently of a man in our community who's a welder, and his nephew was welding with him on the weekend. And the welder looked at his nephew and he said, "Why in the world are you doing that way?" And the kid said, "That's the way I was taught to do it." And the welder said, "That's not how we do it. Let me show you. What would it look like for others who don't have uncles who are welders to benefit from that expertise?" And there is a wide range of expertise in this room. What does partnering in new ways look like? How am I doing on time? About good? About there? Okay. One of the things that was, I think, a blessing in many ways, I started out this role as first the acting superintendent, where I was also acting like I was the superintendent, and then the interim superintendent. They didn't have a good joke for that. And now I've been hired as the superintendent going forward. But when you're hired in an acting and an interim role, it's really causes you to pause and focus on, for this window of time, I've been asked to serve. So how should I proceed if it's just, for at least for now, for this window of time? And one of the things that that I committed to doing, hopefully I did well, was I kept the word in my head: we need to stabilize. We needed to stabilize. We had division, we had hurt people, and hurt people hurt people. And we needed to get some stability in our system. But lest we think that stability in a system is the same as being in a holding pattern, that's not what I mean by stability. What I mean by stability is, before we build that addition on the third floor, let's go check the foundations. Let's make sure that we don't have cracks in the foundations that's going to make all of the new and exciting and innovative things very short-lived if we don't do it right. So I would say we are doing many, many third floor renovation kinds of things. The CDL program, we have a pilot going with kids getting a pharmacy technician certification, and many other things that we could go on and on about. But right now, somebody wrote the billing for the news article for what I was going to do today. And man, you're supposed to under-promise so I can over-deliver, not over-promise. And I heard the word revolution. And I might suggest sometimes we need to think of a revolution within the form. We don't throw out the form. And we continually have revolutions each and every day. Each and every day, as the adults in our school systems have made your kids and the kids of this community their life's work. There are over 2,000 permanent employees in Laramie County School District number 1. And when they are old and retired and on their deathbed, reflecting back on their life, I know not only are they with great pride going to conclude that it was a life well spent, but it was a life well spent with the children and the families and the community partners in the city of Cheyenne. Thank you. Scathing, not body weight related questions now. None of my former students get to do a rebuttal right now, by the way. Oh, oh, yeah, thank you. We have a program called Navigating Laramie One. If you have an interest in just seeing the inner workings of how the school district operates, the finance side of things, we are a big organization, right? As I said, over 2,300 permanent employees. I was at a little panel meeting one day with business partners, and they were looking at me like I was just the supplier of workers. And it occurred to me, we have more workers than anyone else in that room. And so it's a big operation, lots of moving parts. And if you want to know the inner workings of how does finance work, where do we spend our money? Are we doing that responsibly? What does human resources look like? What does capital construction look like? We have a program called Navigating Laramie One. And so you can just reach out, call the main line of the school district if you're interested. We'll be taking the next year's class pretty soon on that. Thank you for that. Yes. Yeah, if you didn't hear the question, she first complimented me on how nice I look today. No, she didn't. Then she asked how much I weigh. Said it didn't look a bit over. I started this career about 40 pounds ago. Question was, what do we feel like our needs for our school construction? And that's a tricky question. In the pipeline, keep in mind that just because money has been allocated doesn't mean that we get to start putting the hammers to the old buildings to build the new. I think we heard Dale talk about that it's just not quite that easy, unfortunately, because when the money's there sitting in the account with your name on it, it should be easier, but right now it's not. So I'm a little reluctant to say, but what we think is out of last year's money that still hasn't been released, we should be able to get an elementary school and a South Side 5-6 elementary school and some pretty robust capacity remedies at East High, which is busting at the seams. Over 1,500 kids at East High. So that's out of last year's money. If you followed the soap opera that we just had, as far as schools were concerned, the legislature had proposed what would be another probably elementary school for us. Then they took it away. Then they gave it back. And so right now we're looking at perhaps one more that, good Lord willing, and if the creek don't rise, we'll be putting the hammers to the old and build the new as late or as early as August. But the other part of your question is trickier. How many do we need? That really has a lot to do with your definition of need. Do we feel like it's okay that kids in one part of town, I'll give you an example. I was invited to watch some kids who had built functioning Roman aqueducts in their elementary school science class. And they were in a common learning space and they were all demonstrating them. We've got some schools that couldn't do that project. There's no room. There's literally no physical space to do something like that. So instead, you probably had to sit there and read about or talk about Roman aqueducts. You didn't get a building there. So how many schools do we need? If we feel like some kids in some parts of town have better access in a suitability sort of way to a different sort of education, we need far more. If you say, haves and have-nots, survival of the fittest, well, maybe you would then argue a little less. On the condition side, this is where I might exaggerate. Don't quote me in the paper. I think we have right around 15 buildings, 15 schools, I shouldn't say buildings, schools that are over 50 to 60 years old. 15. Most towns don't have 15. Guernsey barely has 15 houses, let alone 15 schools, right? But how do you feel about that? That we have schools that were built before many in this room were born. And of course, anything because it's not like your home, right? These are places of business where you have, I mean, let's be honest, the toilets flush at ARP Elementary far more than they flush in your home. And so all of the infrastructure, all of the things that it takes to keep a school up and functioning is just different in a school setting. So if you use that measure of schools that are falling into disrepair for not because of abuse, but simply age, I'm falling apart. I'm that old, right? It shouldn't be a shock that our schools might too. So, but we also live in a real world, and we realize that we will do the best with what we're given. And but the good news is we may have as many as 3 on the way. Yes, sir. Steve, just Steve. And what you didn't know is Frank was grilling burgers before the game for all the hungry fans. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Very kind of you to say. And look, I know that there are some of you might be sitting on your hands right now saying, I've had kind of the opposite experience. And I wouldn't be surprised about that. And not because we love it, but because when you do something each year to the tune of 13,133, sometimes things don't just go exactly according to plan. And I am fiercely, fiercely loyal to the children in this city. And if you've been around me much, I don't want to hear folks criticize our kids. The kids today, I'm not sure it's ever been harder to be 17 years old. Think about that. Think about all that they have to say no to that didn't even exist when we were that age. Fiercely, fiercely defender of our kids. But the grown-ups, while I'm fiercely loyal and to them as well, please, I hope you don't walk away without me the recognition and hearing it out loud from me to say, we must do better. We must do better. We're committed to doing better. We've got people waking up each morning tired, ridiculously worn out, that are showing up again because they know the kids need us and we've got to do better. So if your story isn't quite like Mr. Garrett's there, let's talk some more. And because we want it to be that great of experience for everybody. Is that the hook? Tanya's giving me the hook.
Wow, Dr. Newton, thank you so much for the inspiring, enlightening, and very thoughtful words that you gave to us today. As just a reminder, because you kind of hit on like businesses and getting our kids, in your businesses, the chamber, we do sponsor a program, internship and externships for students and teachers alike. And so if you're a business out there and you want to help inspire our youth and get people in your businesses or inspire a teacher, right? And they can go back to the classroom in August and teach their kids what they've learned maybe over the summer. Please reach out to your favorite chamber director that maybe you work with, Dell, Amber, Elizabeth, anybody, and we can help match your business with a student or a teacher. So thank you everybody for coming today. Military May Luncheon is May 5th at Little America, and we will see you then. Thanks.